Hello, boys, girls, people who are non-binary, um, people who are demigender, gender fluids, and all other comrades on the gender spectrum that I didn't know existed yet. This is Comrade Q, here for some more anarchist propaganda. So, I'm going to be doing this slideshow about different schools of anarchy. So, in general anarchy, there is one main consensus. The state to limit freedom, and if we destroy the state, we will create a far better natural social order. So, with collectivist anarchy, they say that the natural social order is collectivist. So everyone's helping each other. Everyone lives to help their community. So, the first anarchist philosopher I'm going to be looking at on the, I guess, slightly more collectivist side. I guess he is Pierre Joseph Proudhon. He's arguably he could be an individualist, but he has fairly anti-capitalist um beliefs. So to start, he said that anarchy is order without power, and he said that property is theft. There is obviously a difference between property and possessions. Property would be land owned that is made to produce a certain amount of capital. That land would be owned by someone who is not working to produce that capital, and by doing that, they are keeping a power over people, and it is theft. Obviously, possessions aren't. So something like this badly drawn homemade badge of Peter Kropotkin that I made wouldn't be theft. But if I got loads of people to make these types of badly drawn badges, then that's it. And then take most of the money that they produce it once they sell those badges, then that would be theft. He believed that there could be markets, but without capitalism. So essentially, it's non-hierarchical. You don't produce capital from your property, which you don't have, and which you have. Property that you'd have to own in order to be able like that. That if you. So he wanted capitalism, but without property that you would own to try without actually working in that property. So you need to be the one producing the capital to get the capital. Obviously, that would be shared. So it's kind of similar to market socialism. So yeah, he believed in the labor theory of value, where since all things are created through labor, all things are a sum of that labor, which is how things would be made. I'm sorry, which is how things will be valued. So once again, this took me about 30 seconds to make, whereas the badge maker that made it, that would have taken far longer. So he argued against communism, believing that if everyone was forced to be put in communes, then that wouldn't be true freedom. So that led to the creation of mutualism. And then, since he was the first person to actually use the term anarchy, he became known as the father of anarchy. The next person is Mikhail Bakunin. He said that he opposed Marx. For instance, when talking about Karl Marx's idea for a dictatorship of the proletariat, he said, if someone is being beaten with a stick, it makes no difference whether that stick is the people's stick or not. And I don't know anything else about him. Now Karl Marx, he's probably the most famous communist, but he was not an anarchist. So he was not an so he was not an anarchist, but in his later years, after he wrote the Communist Manifesto, he became a libertarian. So yeah, he created communism, which I'm sure, uh, which I'm sure a lot of people know as government and totalitarianism. But really, communism is inherently stateless. Meaning there is no place there is no form of power created by that a government would be formed in, but there can but there can be a government without a state, which is what most anarchists want, including myself. So he eventually wanted there to be a stateless, classless society, and he thought that there should be grassroots democracy in the dictatorship of the proletariat, which sounds very oxymoronic. I don't know why he had to call it that. He's just a bit of an edgelord. So he founded the International, specifically the International Working Men's Association, and he believed that there must be a revolution to overthrow capitalism to later create the dictatorship of the proletariat, which will then form a stateless, classless society. The reason why most communist countries are totalitarianism or authoritarian. Countries are totalitarianism. I can't speak. So the reason why most countries are totalitarian is because because those countries were establishing the system in which in which they believed will eventually become communism. Also, read Marx if you actually want to know what communism is. Like someone that I knew once described it as when there's dictators and stuff. So he was opposed to anarchy because he thought that instant an instant dissolution of the state would be ultimately extremely chaotic, which is why he needed the dictatorship of the proletariat. And he turned libertarian because of the Paris Commune. And the Paris Commune was this commune established in Paris that ran on grassroots democracy, which turned him into a libertarian. Nice little circle. So capitalism causes competition, but that probably shouldn't have been still there. So here's the anarcho-communist logo. It is my profile picture. So yeah, he was originally a Russian prince, which was quite interesting. To be honest, I didn't really realize he was Russian prince until I started getting really into him. Well, not like that, but so he said, "Don't compete. Competition is injurious." I pronounced that wrong, By the way, and injurious is a term rarely used today. Well, a term rarely used today if you don't want to look like a massive nerd. But yeah, um, so so he thought, um, through like his beliefs was actually formed through the lens of Darwinism, which is quite funny um, because anarcho-communism was like it's very different to social Darwinism, which also took its ideas, but like basically in complete opposite directions. In fact, his book Mutual Aid, the he so in his book Mutual Aid, he kind of critiqued social Darwinism. I haven't read it, but I'm very interested in reading it. So he said that mutual aid was how species can actually move forwards. So he thought competition is injurious, and capitalism causes competition, making him anti-capitalist, which most real anarchists are. So he was inspired by how animals move forward, particularly animals like bees and ants. So he famously said, "All is for all." I forgot the full quotes, but that's the shortened version of it. Read the first chapter of the Conquest of Bread if you want to see the full quote. It's like quite near the end. He looks far friendlier than Marx, as you can see, and he was a communist, which is why he founded anarcho-communism, as far as I know. Individualist anarchy. So individualist anarchy believes that the natural order is individualistic and selfish. Not selfish as in like that guy's really selfish because he just has no empathy. It's more like the natural social order is extremely like it is like, in the natural social order people mostly focus on themselves rather than working for a community. The complete opposite of collectivism, basically. So the first philosopher, or philosopher, even though him and his followers don't like philosophy or politics, is Matt Stirner, who founded egoism. So he believed that the ego was the main factor of reasoning because, which is probably which is probably the most, or should I say, only thing that he said that makes sense. So he believed that there was a type of maturity behind the ego, and he called it egoism. And this is basic. And then he went on to say egoism is the force of the adult. So like realism is like the force of like the child. The child only knows what's real and in front of them. So that's according to him. Um, idealism is the philosophy of the young adult. They believe which is essentially a rule of ideas, and then the adult will then believe that they're egoists. Well, would then become egoists. So maybe one day I'll watch this video and cringe about what I said about egoism. But for now, this is the dumbest ideology. Like no adult that I know is egoist, because egoism is stupid and it is for narcissists. Also, it works far better as a totalitarian philosophy. But yeah, he believed that people should only care for themselves, and just be extremely egotistical. So yeah, he would so. But like I think if you only care for yourself, it works far better as an authoritarian ideology rather than an anarchist or libertarian philosophy. Because while sure everyone would be in some way equal, what's more individualistic than one people taking all than one person or a few people taking all power over everything for themselves? What that's far more that's far more unequal, and far more individualistic than everybody works together for the common good of the community. So he said, "To me, you are nothing but food," which is essentially you shouldn't work for you shouldn't work for the interests of people. Instead, you should just work instead you should just work simply for yourself, and everything else and everyone is just there to like manipulate. Once again, it's an ideology for narcissists and sociopaths. So he thought that the state gets in the way of the ego, and without the state, everyone can just be free to be egotistical, psychopathic narcissists. And yeah, it absolutely sucks. Anarcho capitalism, or should I say, anarcho capitalism, is not anarchist. I really offended. Okay. Please don't send bomb threats to myself or please don't send bomb threats to my house, please. You all you Hoppians and like real anarchists. Do you have a choice in do you have a choice in capitalism? If the because like anarchy wishes anarchists wish to stop hierarchy, so and capitalism is built around hierarchy. So how are you going to claim you're an anarchist when you want hierarchy? Though one person that's a massive idiot, forgot his name, but he's a Hoppian that I've seen on YouTube, said that so he said that saying that anarchy was about anti-hierarchy is supposedly Reddit level anarchist. So let's say all you need to be an anarchist is to abolish the state. So so once you do that, you're just so once you do that, there's still power. Even Pierre Proudhon said that anarchy is order without power. If you see here, and there's still power in the bourgeoisie. So, what's going on there? And also, anarchy is, and also with anarcho-capitalism, what's stopping from the few biggest corporations to just form something that's practically the same as a state? It's absolutely wild. Not as in a compliment, it's just stupid.